high school kids are like cats and junior high kids are like dogs. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, if you have a junior high kid and you're mad and you kick them and yell at them, they'll come back to you the next day and they'll forgive you. But if you do that to a high school kid or adult, they'll take it, but they'll pee on the bed when you're not around.
Welcome to Choir Success, where we explore today's best practices for running choirs and choruses. I'm Tom Metzger, and today we'll be talking to Donny Rose in episode 1 of the series How to Build a Successful Choir, where you'll get many valuable insights about how to build and manage your choir. A little bit about our amazing interviewee. Donny Rose has been a passionate music educator and performer for over 40 years, inspiring junior and high school students with his love for band, jazz, choir, and a cappella music. He has a BA in music education and his MA in conducting, and his expertise has taken him around the globe, presenting at renowned music conferences like multiple state and national ACDAs, as well as teaching at music schools in Finland, England, Canada, and the US. He has also directed and/or founded several choirs, including Northwest Sound Men's Chorus, the Northwest Vocal Project, and most recently VanCity Harmony in Vancouver, BC. This video is generously sponsored by Choir Genius. More on them later. Donny Rose, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having this conversation. The first thing I really wanted to ask you, since this is all about building a successful chorus, how many times have you started a chorus?
I've started a youth chorus, I started an adult chorus, and I've started an unsuccessful adult chorus.
Okay, not on purpose.
Yeah, not on purpose.
It's meant to be successful.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Tried.
But not everybody starts choruses.
Right.
And so I would love to understand, given, what was your background? What brought you to this place where you thought, I'm going to start a chorus multiple times? Tell us a little bit about that, about you and how you got to that point.
Well, I think a lot of us are part of a chorus community and we love it, and then we get bored because either the music isn't interesting enough or the culture isn't rigid or tough enough, and you just want something more. You want to be challenged, you want to grow. And I was with lovely people of good character who were very happy being just kind of average, and I just thought, geez, if we sang some right notes, if we sang with a little better vocal production, this could be spectacular. So I realized that if you try to change something, it's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But if you build something, you can set all the parameters. And so that's what I did, particularly with my youth chorus, where it's like, let's just start this thing and I'm going to pick the music and I'm going to set the seasons, and it worked quite well, and it was a great experience. But the piece I knew was, if I tried to work with an existing structure, all the baggage of the past would be the first year of the fight. And so I thought, well, let's just start something new.
Yeah, I think that's probably really wise. I know a friend of mine was asked to take over a chorus locally here. Right. By the way, it's lovely to be able to speak in person, because mostly I do this over Zoom. But he was asked to take over, and he asked me for some advice, and he says, should I do it? And I told him, probably if you're really happy with everything that's going on there and you can just slot in perfectly, then go ahead. But I do think that's one of the major reasons people start new groups, is that there aren't groups around them doing exactly what they want, or they have a vision for what the group should be like that they can't find in their area.
It's like having your own business. It has the beauty of that, where you get to decide the product and the delivery and everything, and has the horror of that, where it can be overwhelming. It's like all these things that aren't already built. The infrastructure of a group is really appealing. So to me, it was really hard. Like, do I want to try to change this group to become singing at a higher level? And the people who were lovely were looking at me like, why are you wanting us to be better? This is fine.
Right. That's right.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
A junior high girl, Julie Allen, in the mid-'80s, looked at me in the eyes and told me very clearly, Mr. Rose, I don't know why you're so mad. It's like you want it to be perfect. And I stood there, and her friend next to her was agreeing, and the other people were like, well, that's kind of, I think he wants this to be really good. So, but it was like very clear to me early on that there are different kinds of joy that people get in choirs, And I just wanted something that wasn't aligning with what was around me. I just wanted something a little more professional.
Right.
And so to make that, I just had to get off my rump and do it. So I did.
Now, the people watching might not know until just now that you're a teacher as well.
Yeah.
So when they say Mr. Rose, it's a student who's speaking to you.
Yes.
And were you always a choir teacher?
No. I'm very much a band director.
A band director.
Yeah,
okay.
and I was in high school and had many wonderful mentors in high school. And by the time I was a junior, my band director said, "Don, you're going to end up teaching choir somewhere." And I laughed and I said, "Mr. Van Gasken, there is no way in hell I will ever teach choir." And he said, "Well, you should just try it, because a lot of times as music teachers go to a school, there isn't enough work to do just one. So you kind of do band, choir, orchestra." And I was like, "Oh, that's probably true." And I showed up and I really liked it. I was rather surprised. I think the big difference for the band folks and the choir folks out there is band, as the listeners probably know, we put people in chair order from best to worst. We take pictures in a militaristic fashion. We have tests. We evaluate. We get band directors throw batons. It's very, it's kind of military. A baton itself is from the military, from when we used to stab people when we were marching.
A bayonet?
Yeah,
Okay.
very much. And the choir, if you walk into a choir room, it's all the pictures on the wall aren't in military order. It's like at their retreat, and they're hugging each other, and they're going on retreat, and they're going on tour, and they're having fun, and they're singing, and they're crying together, and they're singing in a circle, and it's all this community. And there's obviously singing too, but it's a completely different vibe. So me as a band director showing up in the choir world, I scared the choir kids. And choir director is showing up in the band world, the band scares the choir directors, and they cry and run away, because they're just a completely different kind of energy. So the energy I took from the band world to the choir room, I had to quickly pivot and change to be successful, because band people, we love our rhythms, we love our precision, and we want it now. And choir directors are much more about building community and kind of crafting the music by having kids believe in themselves, and then catching them doing something right, like a clicker training, like, yes, that's what I want, now do more of that.
Okay.
Whereas band directors are constantly like the Terminator, looking for the next mistake to get rid of. And so each of those skills are good, but both of them in isolation are terrifying. It's better just to be able to pick up stuff and lift kids up, but not scare them. And so that's where I started in the band, and I ended up getting some choir classes, and I discovered that choir kids care deeply about the community, and band kids care deeply about if they sound good.
Right, okay.
And it was and so I had to work to make the band kids more like the choir kids, are like, hey, care about each other. We should love each other. This should be fun. You should lift each other up. And choir kids think, hey, we should sing the right notes. Let's kind of dig in there. Let's get that. And so it was a real blessing to me as a band person to have that softening of the energy, especially, years ago there, if you know listeners and people out there that were in band in the 50s, 60s, 70s, or if you've seen the movie Whiplash, I experienced that kind of abuse from college people, and that was like, well, they're making me good.
Yeah.
And now I look back in horror, like, what an awful way, it's like beating a dog. There are other ways to help and train people. And so that's kind of where I was with my training. So that choir experience completely transformed my band into playing much more musically, and the environment was much safer. And that's probably the biggest lesson I took from the band and choir worlds, where I kind of tried to mix them both together.
I'd like to thank Choir Genius for sponsoring this video. As a bit of a choral fanatic myself, I'm involved with an a cappella quartet, a choir, and a chorus right now, and they all use Choir Genius to automate basically everything: member management, communication, calendar and attendance, music and learning track distribution, and even registration, donor management, and ticket sales. It saves me and the whole team hours every week so we can focus on what we do best, filling up the risers with singers, signing on new donors, and yes, so I have time to memorize all of my music. I have so much music to learn. Anyway, it's incredibly cost-effective, replacing multiple tools with one simple solution. I know choirs where friends of mine have saved thousands of dollars per year. I don't trust everything I hear on the internet, but this is guaranteed. If you use Choir Genius and you don't save 80% of your time, they will give you your money back, so you really can't lose. Visit choirgenius.com and start your free trial today. Take control, save time, save money, and let your choir thrive. Yeah, to me, this is where the miracles happen, is when you cross-pollinate the skills and the awarenesses of different areas, right? And so you wind up, I think you probably would say that having been directed band so much and coming from that world, that gives you unique things to do with choir people and makes for a different kind of choir experience.
Well, and so band and orchestra score is anywhere from 19 to 23 lines. And so choir people are always like, how can you track 4 parts? And it's laughable, right? It's so easy. Not because it's easy to be a director, but to follow a score after you've been trained to transpose and read all these parts. Right. And so, learning to, transpose that E flat alto and that F horn and that B flat tenor saxophone and going, oh, the clarinet's in the same key as the tenor, all that stuff. After you have done it for 5, 10, 15 years, it just becomes much easier. And so then that skill is amazingly helpful when you read a choir score as a director.
Fantastic. Changing gear a little bit, obviously you're an educator, and I know one of our future episodes we're going to talk a lot about teaching and how that factors into creating a successful choir. But was your educator training also helpful in this kind of education?
Oh yeah. So if folks out there listening that know any music teacher, they know that probably the number one reason why people go into teaching music is they had an amazing music teacher. Right. Somebody touched them along the way. And it wasn't necessarily high school. A lot of times it's grade school or middle school or whatever.
Shout out to Mr. Balinick from my grade 8, grade 9, grade 10 band.
Right? Right. 100%. Me too. And so those people, once you taste it, it's just really amazing. So the training in the colleges now is much more immersive. And I help out here at the college locally too, where I work with student teachers. And instead of waiting till your senior year in college to say, well, now that you've been removed from children for 3 years, let's put you back. Like now they're having you kind of go along the whole way, because probably the most painful thing, I had 16 student teachers, Tom, and 4 of them were beautiful people who loved music but hated children. And so I used to always laugh when I would meet my student teachers, and it was like the first thing that one of my mentors said, well, Don, you don't teach music, you teach children. And I thought, well, that's semantics, but it's not. You work with people, and that's really the lesson that I've taken to work with the adult choirs and the bands too, is that you're not teaching music, you're teaching people, and you're adjusting and modifying to all these groups and all these people what they need, and that's the key to success, because some people need a quiet conversation about, hey, we really got to lift our standards, or another person is like, hey, it looks like you're hungry, or I had a clarinet player at my last school that was homeless and needed reeds for, it's just heartbreaking. And with adults, it can sometimes be more about, I can see that you're distracted, is this too hard, you're in the wrong spot. And that individual one-on-one time, I have found, is probably the number one secret sauce of why I've had success, is because I can't treat you like another person because you have completely different needs. And if I do treat you incorrectly, you're going to remember it. Right. And my high school student teacher that I worked with said, Don, high school kids are like cats and junior high kids are like dogs. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, if you have a junior high kid and you're mad and you kick them and yell at them, they'll come back to you the next day and they'll forgive you. But if you do that to a high school kid or adult, they'll take it, but they'll pee on the bed when you're not around. And I kind of thought that was kind of rough, but it was really true. You know, being a little bit wrong with an adult, they'll remember for a long time. And so when I do make those mistakes, I make sure to apologize, because people aren't always used to directors saying the words, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." That's just not a vulnerable thing that we do a lot, but it's powerful.
Well, I'm very excited about the next 4 episodes of this series, and I know that we're going to touch on all these topics in more detail. So let's end this episode here, and we will move on towards the next topic.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for watching the first video in our series on building a successful choir, and for watching all the way to the end. We'll be continuing this series in episode 2, where we will be discussing some key points about how you can actually build a successful group. You won't want to miss that, so make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon to make sure you're notified. That's all for now, so be successful and keep on singing.